Tanks are in their last season of Dragonflight, and are they fun with the new tier sets and tuning that has not happened yet? That's probably not gonna change too much, and it is a subjective opinion, but I am a tank fanatic and I do like certain tanks more than others, regardless of their power. I'm looking at you, Vengeance Demon Hunter, but that's not what we're gonna be starting with. Because the start is Blood Death Knight. As always, we are starting alphabetically because that's how we like it here at Marcelian&Online. And Blood Death Knight is getting the Vampiric Blood tier set, which is fine. I personally think the one that we've had in Season 3 was better in terms of more fun and how it engages, but Vampiric Blood does have procs, and your HP is giga huge, and some people like to play Umbilicus Eternus, although as far as I understand it, that's the wrong way to play Blood Decay, but it is the way where you get fat absorb shields and very less damage. And then that's what's actually going to factor into my normal rating, because I would rank Blood Decay fairly high when it comes to its fun factor. It is a personal fan favorite, flame favorite tank that I enjoy pretty much in every season. Not doing damage is not one of those things. Now, the tier set that we're leaving behind essentially does give us a lot of damage, and that has been a consistent problem from Blood Decay, which fair enough has been addressed slightly with tuning and buffs to its damage, but that's not enough. I mean, it doesn't really compete with other tanks, unfortunately, and going back to a previous tier set that it's mostly throughput and sustain and effective HP and whatever other terms people smarter than me use, the damage is gonna be a problem. Now we're gonna have access to the trinket. You're probably going to be playing with the legendary. I don't have the legendary yet, unfortunately, on my DK, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to craft another one, because goddamn, those are expensive. But with all that said and done, I will put Blood Decay into A tier. It's still too hard to let my boy ranked 2 down. I would have probably put him bottom S tier in terms of fun, because if we take into consideration the legendary, which is really fun to use on the Blood Decay, it's the only tank that gets to use the legendary, which is dope. And the fact that, okay, maybe the damage is not that high with the tier set, however, I actually like having fat HP bars as a tank, because that does something for me. I don't know, ask my mom. But the damage is going to pull it back a little bit in terms of A tier, and unfortunately, until DK gets that rework that we know is coming in War Within, it's not gonna make it into S anytime soon, unfortunately. Not as similar situation with Brewmaster, has not changed. This spec is not that great in Dragonflight for me. I was gonna say Battle for Azeroth, but then I remembered it's not 2018, 17, 19. It doesn't matter. I don't remember because I deleted it from my memory, and I kind of hope to do the same with Brewmaster because it's just not a favorite for me. The bloat is crazy, and listen, I'm not talking about the super sweet rework that's on the Alpha 4 Monk in the War Within, because that is a totally different can of worms, beans. It's really good, but what we have right now in Season 4 does not really spark my interest for Brewmaster. It's a tank that really lives and dies by its way of managing its stagger and damage, and stagger is kind of not really managed at all, and you're just mostly doing damage, at which point might as well play Windwalker. That has been my motto for Monk and Brewmaster in particular this expansion. I will unfortunately put it into C tier. Once again, this is not related to its performance. Brewmasters are doing alright. I mean, pretty much all tanks are doing pretty good. I don't know, at least in Season 3 and going to Season 4, we'll have to kind of await balance, but in terms of performance, they have been pretty close, with the one exception that we will get to. Last on the list, spoiler alert, today's sponsor of this tier list is our Patreons. Our Patreons is the proper way to say this, but that doesn't matter because they don't care. They just like to support us, and we are super grateful, guys. You are actually amazing, making all of this happen and stirring us to do better content, because that is actually where all of the support that we're getting is going into, you know, upgrading the quality. You see now that things have changed in the background here at Marcelian&Online. We're always striving to do better, and with the support of Patreons, that is 100% possible. And if you like our content and you want to, you know, support a little bit more, because, you know, YouTube is YouTube, consider checking the link down below. You will also have access to a bunch of goodies that only Patreons have access to, like early access videos, bloopers, 4K wallpapers, and podcasts with the Patreons that go really unscripted, uncensored, and unfiltered for your pleasure once a month or once every 2 months, as often as Marcelian and I can handle that stuff. But thank you for considering it, and let's talk about Bear, because Bear is also a fan favorite, flame favorite. I'm gonna coin that eventually. Similar to Blood Decay, and I've really enjoyed Bear in 10.3. Bear was also cool with the Aberrus tier set, I'm not gonna lie, but that was probably mostly because it was fat damage and sustain. It was really cool. To be fair, what makes Bear fun has very little to do with the tier set, although that contributes a little bit. So it being a season 4 spec doesn't really change much. I think Bear is actually really fun, and it had to do with all the talent changes that they did. Not to mention that if they bring a formally strong tier set for Bear back, that would be Bear back. That would be really cool. However, I do want to stress this out because people seem to forget about this when we're getting past OP tier set bonuses back now in season 4. They have been nerfed, and the ones that we're getting back are their nerfed versions. They're not the OG version. So if you remember the God comp that had Bear as the OG best tank in the world for half a season really, that's not coming back. I mean, I don't know if it does because the tier set is nerfed, so it's not doing that great. But considering all the gear options that we have in the next season with all the cool spears and all the cool trinkets, Bear could see a better time in terms of performance. However, I feel like its playstyle is still superior to most tanks. Out of all the tanks that I've played so far, I think Bear just has the most amount of build variety. I know that I'm playing with about 5 different builds in Mythic Plus, which is more than I can say for Blood Decay, Brewmaster, Prot Warrior, Vengeance, and all of that stuff. I'm sure there are variations for all of them, but personally, Bear has been an S tier tank for me, which hasn't happened since Legion, and I do want to say that it has a lot more potential coming, but as far as season 4 is concerned, Bear is actually really fun, and if you haven't tried it yet, I do recommend it. It's an easy tank to get into. You'll have a lot of fun playing a druid, playing armor capped tanks, and not ever dying to physical damage. Yeah, you see those Blood Decays and Vengeance toppling over? That's not gonna be you if you are a Bear. Another strong contender for one of the most fun tanks in Dragonflight has perpetually been Prot Paladin. It's always a fun tank. It has some of the most unique kit and most access to tools that help your party with all of the blessings. Like we know the jazz, right? But that's actually part of what makes the tank fun. Sure, all tanks have sustain. Bear has Dream of Scenarios that heals people, and Blood Decay grips things. But Prot Paladin is actually a really good supporter of a team, has been one of the first tanks to ever be able to run a party with no healers. That's probably going to change with the healer nerfs. However, it's still really cool to throw your shield around. I cannot say too much about its Consecration playstyle. That's always going to be a hit and miss for me. And the tier set that's coming in season 4, to be fair, the tier sets that Prot Paladin has had in Dragonflight are a travesty to its kit and to how much fun the tank is. I feel like no tier set has been good at all in terms of fun. So I'm going to take that into consideration when I rank Prot Paladin. In terms of its actual playstyle, it's really cool. It does have another drawback outside of the tier set being and that's the build variety. Unfortunately, with the current version of the talents for Prot Paladin and nothing yet has been announced in War Within, you don't really have that much build variety. You change 1 or 2 talents for single target and AoE, and that's great. And it does go a long way to say how much fun the tank is with having almost no build variety, so that says a lot, but that is still a drawback for me. So I will put Prot Paladin into A tier behind Blood Death Knight, since I think Blood Death Knight is a little bit more fun. I am hoping that things change for Prot Paladin in the future, but as far as season 4 is concerned, A tier is your jam. Now, if you've watched past tier lists for tanks and in terms of how fun they are, you know where Warrior goes. I'm biased, listen, whatever you want to say, it is what it is. Prot Warrior is OG best fun tank for me, and they have done a pretty good job at lowering the barrier of entry for Prot Warrior going into Dragonflight, as previously maybe the most complicated and difficult tanks to play properly. It's also consistently one of the least performing tanks in terms of pretty much all endgame content, and that's not by too much. However, if you are watching any actual rankings of tank performance or actually high key pushers, you're probably going to see Prot Warrior a little bit lower on the performance list. Now, Prot Warriors, like talking about physical immunity, which you can probably call that with how good block is. You're not gonna die to physical attacks as Prot Warrior, but magic damage is still a problem. Where Bear might have a lot more sustain than Pro Warrior, maybe one of the highest sustains outside of Blood Decay, Pro Warrior just doesn't really have good tools to deal with magic damage outside of Spell Reflect. Now we're moving away from Season 3, where Waycrest Manor has been Pro Warrior's little bitch in terms of Spell Reflect. God damn, was it ever fun to Spell Reflect half of the dungeons cast and just like crank those damage meters. To be fair, I haven't played a lot of Pro Warrior in Season 1, so I don't really know how it handles the Dragonflight baseline dungeons in terms of its overall kit, because in raids it doesn't really matter that much. But it's still going to be a fun tank. It doesn't have build variety, but that, similar to Pro Paladin, says a lot as to how fun the tank is outside of having unique things like Bear does, for instance, which is why I think it warrants the S tier spot. And now we go down to Vengeance Demon Hunter, and why people are salty and molding in the comments because they're just skipping at the end of the video just to see how the tier list is concerning Vengeance Demon Hunter and why it is not S tier, because it is not S tier. Vengeance Demon Hunter is A tier for me. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's one of the best tank reworks, but it is, if we're gonna be honest with ourselves, a little bit too good. And I'm kind of talking about performance without really wanting to talk about performance. The amount of utility that Vengeance Demon Hunter is unparalleled. It's not even funny. It's a little bit funny when you think that Vengeance can just do everything. That is a weird place to be as a tank, and if you are a main Vengeance, I'm not gonna fault you for liking the spec that you're playing right now, and I don't really want to live in a world where Vengeance will have to be stripped off of its insane utility kit, double sigils, all of the silences and fears and stuns and damage and grips and all of that cool stuff, because I think it's amazing that it can do all of that things. However, I don't see Vengeance in terms of meta ever not being S tier until those are just stripped away or its damage becoming poop. And damage becoming poop is a problem for tanks because they need to keep aggro. That aside, I still feel like Vengeance just quite doesn't do it for me. I mean, it's still A tier, but it just doesn't bring the feel of that monstrous demon that I want to be on the battlefield, indestructible to damage, mostly magical, which is, you know, a great swap from what bears and warriors are actually facing in dungeons. It is still good. I kind of wish demon spikes would be the primary way to mitigate damage. It's still a really good way, and as I've played Vengeance throughout Dragonflight, I know there are builds that play Feed the Demon, which unironically is maybe one of the most boring towns, but it is one of the ones that I enjoyed the most, because as a tank I just want to know that, dude, if I just sit there with 20 enemies hitting my face and I'm not dying, that's my day. That's exactly what I like about playing tanks. And fun is an important part for me, which is why we also ranked the most fun DPS specs in Dragonflight Season 4, based of course on my subjective opinion. But I do think it's a correct opinion, and you can watch it and see why I am right, and if I am not, you're still gonna watch it to prove me wrong and roast me in the comments, aren't you? I know you are.